Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance Meeples. Welcome to Ideas, a time where we sit down with publishers, designers, and illustrators in the board gaming hobby and find out how they got their ideas from just being ideas to the games that fill our shelves. And I firmly believe that community is built on conversation, much like games are built on ideas. And today we have a guest designer. And that guest, that designer, goes by the name of Tim Phillips. How's it going, Tim?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
I am doing good. We have had some nice weather the last few days. It's been quite hot for the
Yes.
Canadian prairies, and so yeah, life is good. School's getting into the swing and things and whatnot. So life is busy, and
Yes, sir.
you're doing well.
Yes, sir. What I live in West Virginia. Weather here is starting to get a little cold. We woke up to 60-degree temperature yesterday morning, and
Okay.
I actually had to put on a light jacket to wear to work and everything. So it's getting comfortable now. It's
Okay.
been awfully hot here as well.
Are you a fan of like more like fall time?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so.
We have cold winters, so I'm not necessarily a fan. I would say, yeah, spring and fall are kind of my favorite. But let's
Exactly.
let's talk about the thing that kind of brings me and you together, because this would have never happened otherwise, except for the stuff that's behind me and the stuff that's behind you. And that's this great hobby that we share, which is the board gaming hobby. And so clearly you did not curate your collection overnight. I wouldn't imagine. Let's talk about your gaming backstory, your origin story. What did that look like? Have you been playing games since you were a kid? Like what share your story.
Sure. So I grew up the youngest of eight kids,
Mm.
and my family had a routine family game night.
Yeah.
And I even remember as young as age 3, 4, sitting on my mom's lap while everybody was around the dining room table playing rummy, playing pinochle. By the time I got to, I would say probably 4, 5 in that area, then I started getting included on some of the games. Again, a lot of card games. Monopoly and Risk were two of the earliest games that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Scrabble and Yahtzee and just the main collection. And played games with family and friends. Well, pretty much my entire life.
Mm-hmm. Did you have like a favorite game? Like kind of
Uh,
when you started, like maybe really getting into the gaming hobby, or maybe even let's say that even now, what would you say your favorite game is now?
well, I think originally in growing up, probably my favorite game was Risk.
Mm-hmm.
I tell everybody my life changed in high school when I discovered Axis and Allies
Mm.
because you had multiple unit types, you bought different troops, all the units functioned differently, and it was my favorite for the absolute longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I like I like just about everything. I like light games where families can play together. I'm big on family participation, including kids, parents, everybody that will play, get them into the games. I like number crunchy games, economic games, worker placement. Again, a little bit of everything. Um, if I were to say that I had a favorite, um, some of the games from Cosmos, actually, things in Cosmos are really good. I love Ingenious.
Mm.
Ingenious is a great game. My wife loves Power Grid, which kind of steers me a little bit towards Power Grid as well because it's a lot of fun. Um, Queen games. So I started going to conventions as a volunteer working in the Queen's games booth.
Okay, cool.
So I was able to learn. I got to learn a lot of their games. Glukes, fantastic game.
Mm.
Probably my favorite and my wife's least favorite is a game called Fresco.
Okay.
And my wife bought me the big box for that at Gen Con this past summer, and I'm really looking forward to breaking into it.
Hmm.
So a little bit of everything.
I have I don't have many games from Queen Games, but on the bottom of my shelf here, I have Treasure Hunter, which I absolutely love. My wife loves that game, and it's like an artifact of its own. I'm thinking it's severely out of print, but there was just something about that light drafting. I don't know if you played Treasure Hunter, have you?
Just once.
Okay.
I had to learn it to teach it at Gen Con, I think about 5 years ago.
Okay. And so I love that. And I see a lot of Cosmos games behind you. None Attack, one of them. I absolutely
Yep.
love, and I got it right there. I love Nuntack. It was one of my favorite games from last year. And so it's cool to hear how you have just such a diverse like cataloging games per se. And I love it how you say that your upbringing, I would say, kind of has molded you into the games that you like, in which you can bring people, specifically families, together. Right? Am
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah. And so, what do you said Fresco? What are you playing these days? What have been the last few games you've played?
Last few games that I played. Um, so I was again with some friends and some families, and we broke out pretty much all the games from Dolphin Hat Games.
Mm.
Taco Cat Goat Cheese
Mm.
Pizza. Played some rounds of that. I taught them a game called Gimme That, which if you never played, it's just a lot of fun, a lot of chaos in a box.
That's the little
We
potato on the game on the box, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
yes.
sir. We had fun playing that. Honestly, probably the game I've been playing the most here recently is Dice Words.
Dice words.
Whether I'm out demoing it or friends or family say, "Hey, your new game is out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give it a shot." And another one of my favorites, Back to the Queen games, is a game called Thebes, the city in Egypt, and
Okay.
we're all archaeologists going around hunting for treasure, and it's got just a turn order mechanic in it that's just absolutely brilliant.
Thebes. I'm gonna have to check that out. But let's
Yeah,
let's
fantastic game.
let's talk about Dice Words. But before we get to Dice Words, let's talk about your design journey. When did you kind of start designing games? I know you've done Dice Words and you've done Stacked, and I think
Mhm.
one or two other games that I'm not necessarily familiar with. To be honest, I'm only familiar with Dice Words. But where did this like creative bug start when you started into game design?
Well, it actually started as a kid.
Okay.
You can only play Monopoly and Risk and those games so many times.
Right.
So we started making up our own versions. We'd actually get a map of the United States, and we'd draw out all the states, and we'd play Risk on a U.S. map. And so you
Hmm.
and one of a fun game that I was probably in fourth or fifth grade where we kind of merged Risk and Monopoly, and you got money, you bought troops, and then you could attack from Boardwalk to Park Place, or if you had troops on Reading Railroad, you could move them across to B&O Railroad,
Okay.
and we and you collected income based on the territories you owned. With that money, you bought more troops.
Hmm.
So we've always just been playing around and just making up games.
Mhm.
And then about 15 years ago, so right after college, all of my friends that I played games with took off.
Right.
Everyone got different jobs and went different locations. So I had nearly a 20-year hiatus from about 1990 to about 2010,
Mhm.
to which I didn't play any tabletop games.
Hmm.
And a customer at at the job that I had at the time, he said, "I hear you used to play board games." And at the time, also I played some Avalon Hill.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh yeah, Panzer General, Panzer." And he said, "Well, we have a game night every Thursday night at our house. Why don't you come over?" And again, this was 2010. And very first game I played was the brand new, well, now it's 20 years old, Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
And I got to spend the entire game in the brig because everyone was just convinced I was a Cylon. You make one bad vote, and you're obviously the Cylon. And it was the most fun that I've probably had in years. I didn't learn Ticket to Ride, didn't learn Catan, didn't learn any of those until maybe 10 to 12 years ago.
Okay.
And one of the guys at the game night, actually the host, he is also a game designer, and he had several games published. And we started talking, and that night I dreamed up my first game. I built a little prototype. I called the prototype Robots versus Aliens.
Okay.
And you built mechs, and you kind of worked together to fight off an alien invasion. And a friend of mine got it to a publisher, Sean Brown with Mr. B Games,
Okay.
and he really liked the game, and he'd published a game called Alien Uprising, probably about 5 6 years earlier, and asked if he could take that and make it the sequel to his Alien Uprising and put it in that universe. And I'm like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. That's awesome.
Hmm.
And from there on, it's just dreaming up game ideas. I I'm trying to evolve my process because it usually literally starts with a dream.
Mm.
To where I now I actually kind of write the rule book first,
Okay.
get all the rules completely ironed out, and then start trying to build a prototype. And I'll probably do, my goodness, I guess it depends how active my imagination is, maybe 4 or 5 games a year,
Okay.
or
Wow.
game ideas a year.
O-
Actual going all the way through the process of building a prototype, getting it ready. Uh, I do maybe 1 or 2 a year.
Okay. Cool. And your latest is Dice Words. And we're going to chat about that. You got your nice Dice Words shirt on, and you see it
Yes,
over
sir.
your left shoulder there. My
There we
copy,
go.
nice. My copy is across my living room here on my other game shelf, and I don't actually have the box anymore. I just have the little bag.
Sure.
But let's start diving into that. When did you start dreaming up dice words and bringing this into what it is today? Like I kind of want to like dive into the creative process on that one.
Sure. So the first iteration of Dice Words actually uh, just either dreamed it or daydreamed it probably 10 to 12 years ago.
Wow.
Sit down and tinkered with it and said, hey, this actually might not be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So had to do a lot of number crunching again because a lot of games require balancing. You for Dice Words itself, it was real important to get the mix of the letters right. How many, it wouldn't make much sense to have only one letter E in the game and 5 Z's.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to come up with the right balance on that. I probably built 2 or 3 different prototypes, literally going to our local hardware store, buying 1/4 inch square dowel rods, 1 inch square dowel rods, and cutting them up to make dice
Mm-hmm.
and literally writing letters on them. Took two or three iterations of that before I got a distribution that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed it to a friend, the same guy who introduced me to Sean Brown from Mr. B.
Okay.
He took it to the gathering and showed it to some publisher friends up there,
Okay.
and that's where it began. One particular company, they liked it, but then they wrote me back about 6, 7 months later and just said, we love the game. There's nothing wrong with the game, but we've really got to focus. Their production queue was full at that time, all the way through 2019.
Okay.
And I told my wife, I said, I'm in no hurry. I'll wait 2 or 3 years and submit it to them again.
Yep.
And I did submit it to one other company in the interim, who also kept it for about a year. And 2020 rolls around, and we all know what happened in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the game just literally sat on my bookshelf until this is 25, 24, summer 2023. I got it out, I dusted it off, and I sent out some sales sheets probably in June.
Mm-hmm.
And Cosmos wrote me back and said, yeah, we'd actually kind of like to see this. Could you bring it to Gen Con? And I took it to Gen Con, met with the president. He checked out the game, took it with him, and 6 months later, they told me they want to sign it.
Wow. What was we'll come back to that, but you said
Sure.
you working on the distribution. How did you figure out which letters to use on the dice? Or let me back this up. Is the copy that I have and that's behind you, is that the same distribution that you designed, or that went through development and a bunch of stuff got changed? Like, so maybe it wasn't you who made the final decision as to which
Right.
vowels and which consonants are on which dice. How did you go about doing that to kind of get that distribution?
So, well, that's part two of the question first because it's easiest. Um, to the best of my knowledge, it's the same original distribution that I had.
Mm-hmm.
If Cosmos made any changes, they didn't tell me, and I haven't noticed.
Okay.
The way that I got it, again, first was this kind of gut instinct. On the player dice, you have seven dice. Each one has 6 sides, gave me a total of 42 letters.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Google, and I think that pointed me to Wikipedia. This is before AI was around to help.
Right.
And I found a distribution of all the letters in the English language and the frequency that they were used.
Okay.
And I kind of broke them into three groups, the super most common, the next most common, the least. And from a scoring perspective, the most common were only worth 1 point. The middle tier, each of those became worth two. And then the least common letters are all three. As you noticed, every letter in the game is one, two, or three,
Hmm.
except for the question marks or the blanks, which are zero.
Right.
And then it was just a matter of tinkering. Okay, these particular ones I want to put on 4 dice. These I want to put on 3. These I want to put on 2. These I want to put on 1. And it just so happened to work out well after some finagling that I got 42 unique letters.
Hmm.
And one thing a lot of people don't know if they haven't studied, on the ice dice, you have 4 dice that you roll at the beginning, and there's again 6-sided dice that gives you 24 faces. So every letter is represented one time except for the Q and the Z.
Okay.
There's no Q and the Z on the ice dice. Then on the player dice, well, since there's no Q and the Z on the target letters, I left the Q and the Z off of the ice dice. Sorry, off the player letters since it's not on the ice dice.
Right. Yep.
And I started thinking about it. J and X, even though they are on the ice dice, they are rarely used in a word.
Hmm.
So I actually ended up removing those from the player dice and then replaced those with the 2 wild cards
Mm.
so that you could use the wild card for any letter.
Hmm.
So if you're playing the game and if a J or an X does show up as one of the ice dice, the only way to satisfy that requirement is with utilizing a question mark.
Hmm. I should back this up. If you are watching, not you, but the viewer are watching, and you're like, none of this
What is
makes
he
sense.
talking about?
Look at the description of this video because you can see my review of dice words. So then you can watch that and come back here, and all this will make sense. What would you say would be what was your biggest challenge? What was your biggest aha moment when designing? If you can remember, because you said this spark came a decade ago.
Pretty much.
Where was that?
Um, it was probably the determination of how to reward players for matching the ice dice. If you match one, multiply it by one. If you match two, multiply it by two.
Mhm.
Because until then, initially, there was no bonus points for matching that. And I was thinking, well, you've got to reward the players for using the dice. It isn't an equitable outcome if I make a 10-point word and I only use one letter, and you make a 7-point word, but you use all 4 letters.
Mm.
And so coming up with the idea to multiply the player score by the number of the letters that they matched, I think was probably the biggest aha.
Hmm. Yeah. You know what? I've enjoyed this game just today. Even my son, while I was at work, he was playing solo and just practicing his spelling. And my
Yeah,
9-year-old, she's been asking to play it. We played it like dozens of times already. And which kind of
well, good.
leads me into my next question. There are variants in the rule book that um allows people to use it in a classroom setting. There we go. Sorry. I had to kind of formulate my thoughts there. Um are you an educator, or were you an educator, or was that something that Cosmos put in? Um what was that like? Because I absolutely love it that there are opportunities to teach spelling, to teach simple multiplication in this in dice words. And
Yeah.
I find for myself as a dad of two younger kids, 9 and 12, I love games that I can play where they can have fun, but yet they are still learning, if that makes
Right.
sense. Like a
Yep.
lot of hobby games, you can practice like cognitive skills or like planning ahead or different things like that, right? That I think sometimes in maybe mass market games maybe those decision points aren't there. And that's one of the reasons that I love board gaming, is because I
Right.
can kind of teach that without teaching. Like, we're playing, we're having fun. And like,
You hit the nail right on the head.
you know what I mean? And so,
Yes, sir.
um, is that something you put in those variants, or is that something like Cosmos took and was like, you know what, like there's something in here that can be used in a classroom in a teachable moment setting? What was that like?
Those are all ideas I came up with.
Okay.
I don't have an education background. Three or one, two, three. Yeah, three of my siblings were public school teachers.
Okay.
Um, but just growing up from having played games, literally pre-K, whenever we would play Monopoly, my siblings, my mom, everybody would make me be the banker. So
Okay.
I was 5, 10,
Mm.
20. I was having to learn how to count the money. I was always the scorekeeper in Rummy, always the scorekeeper in Scrabble. May or may not explain why I won quite a bit, but we don't need to. Hopefully, my siblings won't be seeing this on video. And you, you hit the nail on the head that education, in my opinion, education is very effective when the participants don't even know they're learning.
Mm.
When they're just having fun. I have a game that I've designed and I'm pitching, and a company has it right now. It's just a very light um, market game,
Okay.
but in the market, players are buying chemical elements, and then they're turning around and selling chemical compounds to make money.
Hmm.
And I have a family that does one of my test groups. I had them do blind testing where they read the rules and go through the game itself. And after they played it, I asked their 9-year-old little girl at the time, I said, "All right, I got a question for you." And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "How do you make potassium hydroxide?" And she leaned back and closed her eyes and said, "You need one K, one O, and one H."
Hmm.
And I'm like, perfect. They don't even know what potassium hydroxide is, but at the same time, just from playing the game and learning how things combine, they can learn things.
Mhm.
With dice words, it was the same.
Mhm.
Because again, I do believe in including as many people as possible. Family gatherings, get as many people want to play. Whether they're 80 years old or 8 years old. I wanted to make some way that younger players could be competitive.
Mhm.
And so that's where some of the variant rules came in from. Um, if you flip the player tile board over and see that bonus points actually start accruing at a lower point. I can't take credit for that one. That was kind of a collaborative talking point with Cosmos.
Mhm.
Um, I said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. They may have even said, what did I think about it? But it was again just to allow, most games, if you're playing fill in the name blank name game with a 7-year-old, unless you let them win, they're not ever going to win.
Right.
Hopefully they would still have fun.
Mhm.
Dice World is a game where they actually, with some of the optional rules, they can be competitive.
Mhm. Dice Words is probably a game that I lose. I don't even know what my win percentage is, and I really don't care. I truly don't care. Unless I'm playing with my wife, then I do care.
Then it
Because
matters.
then it matters. But if I'm playing like pretty much any other time, specifically with my kids, like I don't. If I never win the game, I've won in the end. If that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Yes, completely. And another good thing about Dice Words is um, I call it horizontal expansion, but it will expand easily for the number of players without increasing the duration of the game.
Hmm.
So if you got, Dice Words itself will support 2 to 4 players. Like you said, it's fun to just sit down and play by yourself. But let's say your group has 6.
Yeah.
You can buy 2 copies of the game, pass out 2 more sets of the dice.
Hmm.
Everyone still use the same target letters, and you can play it without increasing the duration.
Hmm.
If you're a teacher in a classroom of 20, you can buy 5 copies of the game. Give everybody a cup of dice, put on your headphones because you're going to have 20 kids rolling dice in a cup. But the teacher can roll those target letters, write them up on the dry erase board, and start the timer. All the kids play at the same time. And again, it doesn't increase the duration of the game.
Hmm.
Um, so to me, that's really important. Again, because the whole thing about the gaming industry is, accessibility and inclusivity, and the more people you can include, and the easier it is for people to play the game, I think the better.
Hmm. I agree. So as we just got a few more minutes here, I got a question also. I think when Dice Words got it announced, it was said that it was the first game, um, something about with the Cosmos North America team or something of sorts. What exactly does
That is
that mean?
correct.
Uh, um,
Sure. So Cosmos itself, Thames and Kosmos, is a 200-year-old company.
mhm,
They're headquartered in Germany. They started literally in the 1820s.
mhm.
And most all of the all of the board games to this point, to my understanding, actually originated with the European office,
Okay.
all the way from the design through the development. I mean, the entire game life cycle. Um, I was told when they picked this game, so they just said, "We want you to know that this is the first game that we are doing solely out of the North American half of the company." So the
Okay.
game was sourced in America. It was fully developed by the American Thames and Kosmos team, and all the work has been handled completely by this side of Cosmos.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
my final question, what are just a few minutes here? You said you have this other game about the chemical elements
Uh-huh.
out there. What else are you working on? Can you share any more? Do you have anything else coming down the line that you can share? And like I said, share what you want.
Sure.
Don't
Understood.
get into trouble with like contractual agreements or anything like that you can't say something. But
Right. I currently do not have any other games under contract.
okay,
Uh, I have four games under review by four different publishers.
okay, nice.
I'll be honest, I make a mistake. Well, many people would think I make a mistake that when I build a game, I don't make 10 prototypes and send it to 10 different publishers and then wait to hear back from one of them.
You got one.
If you're a publisher, I'll send you a game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want 3 months or if you want a year, I don't send that to anybody else. If you tell me yes, we're in business. If you tell me no, then I will send it off to another publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So I have four games to four different publishers. One is a tower defense game set in a D&D 5e universe where the players are trying to defend a fort from an invasion of goblins. That publisher's had it since PAX U, and I'm in no hurry. That if from this perspective, it's the no news is good news.
Mm.
If you get a letter back from a publisher a month after they receive a game, they're probably going to say, thanks, but no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm perfectly fine with waiting. I have two light family card games, and one a publisher picked up at Gamma back in February, and they're still reviewing it. I'm guardedly optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one I handed off to a publisher at Origins.
Okay.
So they've been looking at it since Origins. And then the chemistry game that I mentioned earlier, it was picked up at Gen Con this year.
Okay. So
And then I have three games that I'm currently just working on. I just finished typing up the rules this past weekend on one of the games.
okay.
And hopefully I'm going to start building a prototype this week. And if I can get some testing done, I may show it to Cosmos might get first dibs on it because it seems like a game that may be back in their wheelhouse.
Okay.
So that'll be hopefully next on the list.
Right on. Very cool. Sounds like you are
Thank you.
busy nonetheless.
I keep pretty busy.
Right on. So if someone wants to reach out to you, they have questions, they have, some, yeah, just like some thoughts about Dice Words or whatever, how can they get a hold of you? Are you on BGG or?
Yep, probably the easiest way for most of your audience to get me would be on BGG.
Okay.
You can click on Dice Words, or find Dice Words, and then click on the designer to pull up my profile.
Mm-hmm.
My user ID on BGG is knzdad, Katie and Zoe, KNZ Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Or then just look for me on Facebook.
Okay.
Again, name is Tim Phillips, and my profile picture on Facebook is the penguin from Dice Words.
Right on.
So you can find me right there. Feel free, send me a friend request, send me messages, whatever. Any questions, I'll try to do my best to help.
Right on. Well, this has flown by. Thanks so much for taking the time, and so much. Thanks so much for taking the time to build this wonderful hobby that we share. I'm just looking at all the games that you have, and I'm like, man, my city. I enjoyed that one. None attack.
That's a good.
Marvelous. Drop it. Just a lot of fun games that you have used to create community. And like I said at the beginning, I believe that community is built on conversation, much like all these games are built on ideas. So I just want to say thanks for taking the time.
Well, and thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun. If you ever have any questions, if you need any hints on dice words when you're playing your kid, let me, give me a call and I'll do a video call and I can see if I can spot a word for you real fast.
Right on. Well, thank you again. And yeah, check out Dice Words if you're a fan of like light dice or light word games. Dice Words has been an absolute blast. So, like I said earlier, my review is in the description of this video. And like I said, games are built on ideas, just like community is built on conversation. Until next time, my name is Brent. Grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.